I was riding home the other night with my son. It was a long day, after a long day. And so we were driving along, and he said, "Mom, how's your TEDx talk going?" I said, "Well, you know how it goes." He said, "Well, can I give you some advice?" I said, "Okay." This son is always giving me advice, and if you've heard me give a talk before, I've always told stories about him because he gives me lots to talk about. So I said, "Okay." So he said, "Don't tell any jokes. You're not good at telling jokes. So promise me one thing, don't try and make people laugh." I said, "Okay." He said, "Mom, you've got to go for what your strength is. So go for your strength." So I said, "Okay." He said, "Make them cry." You are really good at making people cry. I said, "Thanks, son, I'll try and remember that." I think it'll be difficult to make people cry if I only have 18 minutes, because I do have a lot of stories to tell that could make you cry. So the crying baby is really something that I talk about a lot. You talk about passion. I have a passion for this. Since you might think that this is an out-of-the-way topic, I want to bring up something that came in the newspaper. What's the date? May 8th, 2013. That was this month. There was an article in the paper that said, "Rotting body of baby found off of a ferry pier." This was this month. Man was out fishing with his friends, pulled in an environmentally friendly handbag or bag like you would get in the supermarket, pulled it up and found a dead baby inside. The same article, if you'll read down at the bottom and up, it says, "Oh, by the way, there was another baby found in a cell phone house in Taiwan by a cleaning worker. The baby was found with still the umbilical cord and a big bang on the head. Probably the baby cried when the mother was, after it was born, and the mother just whacked him on the head and threw him in the garbage." If you think that's not unusual, also in North Point at a garbage site, we also was found a little girl, only she was alive. Actually, she's at our facility now. This is not unusual in Hong Kong. If you read your paper and you really think about some of the problems in Hong Kong, you cannot pass it by without being passionate. Mother's Choice actually started with the idea 26 years ago after a series of articles in the newspaper about the number of girls going across the border into China for late-term terminations or abortions. What was shocking to me was that out of the 10 clinics that they went to visit, over 100 girls were going across every day. What was really shocking to me was that 40% of them, the girls were already in their 8th and 9th month of pregnancy. I've had 7 children of my own. My oldest daughter is in the audience, and I know that all of my children are born at high risk, and I was always told, "Oh, don't worry, once you've passed the 7-month period of your pregnancy, the baby can live without you if the baby is born early, so don't worry about that." What was really shocking was with one clinic that they visited, that day they had had 40 terminations, and half of them were already ready to be born. Why would a girl wait till she was 9 months pregnant and just have a few weeks to go and then either kill the baby or have the baby killed? What was really shocking was what they do in some of the clinics is they inject the mother's womb with poison, and then they wait for the baby to die, and the baby comes out. Next to that article was one about the scientists in China who want to do experiments with live fetuses. So they were going to Shenzhen to look for clinics that would give them live fetuses so they could do experiments on the live fetuses of the babies. Why would a girl do that? Why did these girls throw their babies out the windows or throw them in the water? And I have one word for that: It's no hope, 2 words, no hope. No hope. And a mother to want to have their babies and take their babies, what would cause her to try to get rid of the baby? So we asked ourselves, okay, why isn't there a place in Hong Kong where a girl could go to wait a couple of weeks and have the baby? So we started looking around Hong Kong, and we couldn't find a place. So we said, okay, let's rent a room someplace and have a place and have a safe, loving, non-judgmental home for a girl to go to. And that's how we started this organization that helped take care of girls that are pregnant. So what kind of girls come to us? What is their profile? We know that in Hong Kong, it's that you can have a termination up until 6 months of pregnancy. So the girls that are waiting till the last trimester of the pregnancy actually probably don't know that they're pregnant for a long time. We do know that they're very young. We get girls as young as 11 and 12. Our average age in our organization is 14 years old. We know that one of the big organizations in Hong Kong that does works with girls who provide terminations. Last year, they did 20,000 terminations. Now, this is an organization where we have the statistics. We have no idea how many are done in illegal clinics, private hospitals, across the border. We have no idea. So if you think this isn't a big problem in Hong Kong, think twice. If you really are serious about reading your newspapers, you will find out these are very typical stories, and they happen every few weeks. So what does a typical girl look like? I did an interview with a 13-year-old about 10 days ago. She had had her baby, and she was at our place saying goodbye to the baby. She was a really amazing girl, I can say. So I had heard that she was pretty put together, so I had asked if I could interview her after she said goodbye to her baby. Now this would have been a very emotional time for her, I would imagine, but she agreed to talk to me. So we were in a room, and I said, thank you for talking to me. I want to ask you some very personal questions. And you don't have to answer them if you don't want to, but just do what you feel comfortable. I promise you I'll never say who you are. I will never give any details, but you know I represent Mother's Choice a lot, and I want to tell your story. So would you be willing to talk to me? And she said yes. She showed no emotion, so I started asking her all the questions that you would probably like to ask her. I said, so, what age were you when you started having sex with your boyfriend? And she said, well, I was about 12. I said, okay. I said, did anybody ever talk to you about sex before? She said, oh, no. I said, well, how did you feel about it? How did you come to the conclusion with your boyfriend that you were going to do this? And so she said, well, we had, of course, seen it on television and stuff, so we thought we would get a condom and everything would be all right. I said, well, did you enjoy that experience? And she said, oh, no, I didn't. But she said, I really love my boyfriend and he really loves me. So I said, okay, so how did you find out that you were pregnant? She says, well, I started suspecting, but she said, I talked to my boyfriend and we just thought we would just deny it and not really think about it. So I said, well, how did you find out you were pregnant then? And she said, well, I found out I was pregnant for sure when I was 8 months. She said, she said, you know, my mother had me when she was very young, and so I was raised by my grandparents. And of course, they didn't know that I had a boyfriend. I said, your grandparents didn't know that you had a boyfriend? She said, oh, no, they didn't. So she said, what am I going to say? What was I talking about? It's my age, you know, I'm older than he is. So she said, I was having dinner one night, and my grandfather was sitting there with me, and my grandfather had a good look at me. She said, well, I tried to kind of hide it, and he said to the grandmother, come over here. So the grandmother came over to the table. He said, you take her to the doctor tomorrow. She said she sat there. And his grandmother said, why? She's not sick. He said, no, you must take her to the doctor tomorrow for a checkup. So she said, my grandmother took me to the doctor the next day, and it was confirmed that I was pregnant. I said, well, how did they feel about it? She said, they were really sad. I said, so did you tell your mom? How did you tell your parents? And she said, well, I didn't tell them. My grandmother told them. I said, well, did they yell at you? Did they kick you out of the house, which is very common? She said, no. She said they invited him over. And she said, what I can tell you is that when my parents walked into the room, there was a big cloud in there, and it was very dark. I said, well, how did they feel? And she said, they were sad. I said, was your boyfriend there? She said, yes. I said, well, what did your boyfriend say? He said, I'm so ashamed. He said, I've shamed my family, and I've shamed your family, but most of all, I've shamed you. I said, well, how did you decide to give your child up for adoption? And she said, oh, we knew from the very beginning that we couldn't take care of the baby. So we were very firm that we wanted our child to have a home. I said to her, come over here. And I put my arms around her. And I said, you're very brave. You're really brave. Not very many people are brave enough to do what you're doing. And I want you to know I'm very proud of you, because you're very young and this is a very hard decision to make. And I said, I want to tell you I love you. And I put my arms around her, and she looked at me. And then I said, I have to go to a meeting. So I left because I didn't want to cry. And the social worker told me later, she said, you know, the minute you left the room, she started bawling. She was crying and crying. And she said, you know, nobody's ever talked to me like that before. She said, I've never had anybody do that to me before. So that was my experience last week. But you know, 30% of the girls that come to us come from the very poorest families in Hong Kong. Most of them in the New Territories. Most of them have never even been to Hong Kong side. Most of the girls that come to us, 30% we know of the ones that we take care of, 30% of them, their mothers were pregnant as teens. And you know what? Their mothers were pregnant as teens. You see, it's a cycle. It's a cycle. How do we break the cycle? What do we know about the kids? Well, they've not had any sex education. Local schools have 1 hour a year of sex education. So what they learn from the internet and their friends. I asked this girl, did your parents ever talk to you about sex or relationships? She said no. Oh no, they wouldn't do that. I said, well, actually, my parents never talked to me either. But this is what we've learned. Kids have a huge knowledge gap about what all of this means. 50% of our girls come from divorced families. So there's nobody to talk to them, nobody even to model to them what is security, what is a healthy relationship, what does love mean, how do you date healthy, how do you have healthy relationships with the opposite sex, what do you do if you're uncomfortable and somebody wants you to do something that you don't want to do, what do you do about it, how do you say no? What is a good time for you to start dating? Nobody talks to the teens. So kids don't know. So we have been working at Mother's Choice for a new slogan, one that would say exactly who we are. And I will say that it's this: no girl and no baby should be left alone without hope, with no hope. And everybody deserves a second chance. So I would say, I would urge you, if you're a teen, talk to your parents about this. Don't be embarrassed. If you're a parent, talk to your kids. Our education department needs to work more on sex education for younger children, but I really think it all happens within the family. Don't let your kids learn about things from other people. So thank you very much.